What are the hardest things to minimize? Our stuff is just stuff, and yet it can sometimes get an emotional hold on us. If something isn't being used and isn't making us happy or serving us well, why is it that we have a difficult time letting go of it?
I told him I can be a fighter if you want. I'll be there to catch you if you fall. I can make it brighter when it's dark, when it's dark. I told him I would do it all for you, and I know you do it for me too. I can be a fighter if you want, if you want. I can be a fighter. I can be a fighter if you want. I can be a fighter if you want.
Hello everyone, I'm Katie Mixon. Welcome to Minimal Mindful Mama. If you are new here, I love sharing videos about minimalism, sustainability, decluttering, and motherhood. So if any of those topics would be helpful to you, please hit the subscribe button down below, and you can ring the bell so that you'll get notified every time I upload a new video. Today I want to talk about the areas that are hardest to minimize and declutter. These are different for every person, but I think it can be helpful to take a look at some of the more emotionally charged areas so that you can identify what is holding you back from letting go of the possessions that aren't using and that are not serving you well anymore. The first thing that I think can be difficult to declutter are things that were given to us by others. Gifts can be extremely difficult items to declutter, as we don't want to disappoint or feel like we're disrespecting the person who gave it to us. However, gifts are usually given in order to bless the recipient. It was intended for you to use and enjoy and love. They wanted to bring joy into your life by giving you a gift. So if the item isn't serving you or is no longer bringing you that joy and is causing you to have more clutter and more stress in your life as you need to care for this item and is taking up valuable space in your home, that gift is no longer serving the intention with which it was given. In this scenario, I'm of the opinion that the person who gave you the gift would be much happier for you to let that item go than to hold on to something they gave you if it's causing you stress. Of course, there are exceptions to this if the gift was given in a manipulative way with the intention of you feeling guilty and like you have to hold on to this forever. And that can be the case with sometimes family items or heirlooms. And so next I'll talk about those. Heirlooms can be difficult because it's something that's been passed down in your family for perhaps generations, and you don't want to be the person to stop that tradition. Of course, if an item is important to you or special to you or beautiful and brings you joy, then do not declutter that. You absolutely should keep those things which bring you happiness and make you smile when you think of the person that it's from. But really think about why you're holding on to something. Is it because you use it or you love it or it brings joy into your life? Or is it only out of guilt, out of family pressure that you have to hold on to this and pass it down another generation? If that is the case, I would suggest finding someone else in your family that you could pass this item on to who would value that item more than just wanting to hold on to it for the sake of appeasing their guilt. Someone else in the family who would recognize the significance of the tradition the same way that you do without it being a burden on them. This can be a really good way to preserve that family tradition and yet ease some of the burden and the clutter in your own home. Or perhaps your family heirloom is something that no one wants and that has been continued to pass down for generations purely out of that guilt. I think this is a good situation to consider. Do you want to continue passing that guilt down? in reality, you're not just passing down the heirloom, you're passing down the pressure to hold on to this and to continue passing it to another generation. You want to bequeath things to your children that will make their lives better, that will bring joy into their lives. You don't want to leave them with a burden of guilt. And so if that's something that you and your siblings have been left with, consider making a new tradition. Consider giving your children the gift of not being burdened by possessions. Give them a new mindset and way of looking at their stuff as purely physical possessions that are meant to serve them and not to cause guilt. Help them to see that the things that have been passed down for generations, these possessions, are not the important things in life, and that they can choose to value what's important to them, their relationships, their mental health, their space, over their possessions. In my opinion, that would be the best family heirloom that you could possibly give. Another thing that can be really difficult to declutter, that can cause a lot of stress in your life, is toxic relationships. This is something that isn't usually talked about when it comes to minimalism and decluttering, but I think that it can be really important. And it's along the same lines as the guilt from the gifts and the family heirlooms. If a relationship is not healthy, it's taking up space in your life even though it's not a physical item. It can be causing you stress and pain and guilt, and is overall not good for your mental health. By pursuing a more minimal lifestyle, we're trying to create that space for ourselves to live the life that we want to have. But if we're holding on to these relationships that are purely toxic, then you're holding yourself back from living that life. This can be a friendship, this could be family, this could be a job that you have. Any relationship that has fallen into unhealthy patterns should be taken into consideration, and you should think about, is there a way to repair this relationship? Is there a way that we can take a step back and set some boundaries and make this a good, healthy relationship that is beneficial to all parties? Can both people work together to improve this relationship so that the toxicity goes away? Because it takes both parties in order to maintain healthy boundaries and have a healthy relationship. And if one party isn't able or isn't willing to work towards that goal, you can't do all the work yourself. Because all of minimalism is truly working towards your mental health. It's decluttering your space and creating the life that you want and removing stress. And so if there's these toxic relationships that are damaging you, it's so important to address those. You may need to set those boundaries in such a way that that person is not in your life anymore. It can be really helpful to look up red flags in relationships and to see which behaviors are toxic and see what relationships come up in your mind when you read those, and really consider, are the people in your life helping you to become the person that you want to be? And are you helping them to become the person that they want to be? This can be extremely difficult, but I think that it's really worth considering, and you can definitely find those relationship red flags and look up what are healthy boundaries in different relationships, and think about that as you make that determination. Another thing that we can feel a lot of guilt about letting go are items from someone who passed away. This is, again, similar to those family heirlooms or to gifts. If someone is no longer with us and we want to hold on to their things to have that tangible memory of them, that can be extremely difficult to let go of. There's so much emotion tied up in that and so many memories. But again, if these items are cluttering your home and giving you extra work to do and causing you stress and anxiety because of the amount of stuff contained within your space, it might be time to minimize those. Some helpful ways to do this would be to choose the best of the best. Choose your favorite things that have the happiest and the best memories for you, and keep those and let the rest go. Or perhaps take pictures of everything, and that way you can have an album of photos, or it can be on your computer and you can go through it and have those memories and be reminded of those things without them taking up your physical space. However you choose to go about this will be different for each person, but please don't hold on to things out of that feeling of guilt. That special person might be gone from your life, but by letting go of those things, you're not letting go of them, you're not letting go of the memories. Those will always be with you in your heart, and creating room in your life can help you to live the life that that person would want you to have, that is free from that guilt. Another category of items that can be extremely difficult emotionally to declutter or minimize is expensive items. So this may not be so much out of that guilty feeling. Perhaps it's more coming from a place of regret, wishing you hadn't spent the money, or feeling like you need to get your money's worth out of something. And oftentimes these are the items that we have this desire to sell. So we didn't use it as we hoped, but we know how much we paid for an item, and so we want to sell it to try to at least get back some of what we had invested into it. But selling your stuff is a really good idea sometimes, and can be a great way to make some of that money back. However, if it's taking you a while to list an item, or if something isn't selling for the amount of money that you think that it ought to be worth, and it's still sitting in your home causing you stress as you continue to care for it and clean around it, it can sometimes not be worth the effort of selling. The money that you spent when you bought that item is gone. It was gone when you paid for the item, and that decision is in the past. You don't need to appease your guilt or regret by getting some of the money back from it. You can look at it as a lesson learned and be more intentional with your purchases in the future. So what you need to decide is, are you going to hold on to this item in hopes that maybe someday you'll get a little bit of the money back that you invested into this? Or can you let it go and start living your life free of clutter and with the space that you want for the things that you want to be doing? Perhaps you might need to list an item at a lower price, or come to terms with the fact in your mind that you're going to make less money off of this item than it is even close to being worth. And perhaps you might realize that the effort that goes into listing an item or having a garage sale or a yard sale is more stress and work, and it's not worth the amount of money that you could potentially make off the item to you. Your time and your state of mind is more valuable than any item could ever be, no matter how expensive. And so if that just doesn't sound fun to you and sounds like a stressful experience, then just get rid of the item. Don't let it continue to cause you that stress and feel like you have to get some of your money back. Baby items can also be a category that is extremely difficult to declutter and minimize because it's so sentimental to us as parents and as mothers. This was when my daughter was a newborn baby, and she was so tiny and cute, and I miss when she was that little and snuggly, and she's getting so big now, and perhaps your family is complete and you're not going to be having any more babies, and it's just a really emotional, sentimental thing to do, is to declutter those baby items. I know for me it's hard every time, and it's not even just the special stuff like the newborn coming home outfit. It's even like the crib or the baby swing, or things that are just gear that are huge and take up so much space in your house and aren't really those items you would put in the sentimental category, and yet they're so difficult to let go of because that was a part of your life and a part of your kid's life and brings back all those memories. Personally, I usually have to sit with the idea of decluttering some of these items for a little while. I'll look at, say, the changing table and be like, we're not using that anymore. It's time to let it go. And that is hard. It's hard for our mama hearts. And so I can recognize that, and I go, no, I'm not ready yet. Like, I can't let that go. And then as I sit with that for a few weeks, I can come to terms, and I'll come around to accepting this new stage of life that we're in, and that I can let go of that changing table because I don't use it anymore, and my memories aren't in that piece of furniture. I still have my little girl, even if she is bigger, and I still have all those sweet pictures and memories from when she was a baby. And by letting go of this piece of furniture, I can, one, make room in my house for this toddler that I now have and enjoy this season of life with her, as well as maybe even make a little bit of money off of the item, or be able to give it to a friend who could really use it and get more life out of it. Of course, there are those baby items that are extremely sentimental, and so I like to keep a little memory box for each of my kids. I have just a small box about this big, and I will keep their most special things in it. So perhaps their coming home outfit or their baby blanket, things like that, so I can remember how little they were and have those small mementos of their newborn baby days without taking up a ton of space in my house, and also keeping it a manageable size so that when they're grown up I can hand them that small box and they can have their baby things without it being an overwhelming amount of stuff filling bins and bins in the attic or the basement. That brings us to items from our own childhoods that perhaps our parents held on to for us and did keep those bins and bins, or even a smaller amount of things that they kept for us and saved because they wanted us to have that memory. They didn't want us to wish that they hadn't gotten rid of things that were special to us. Similarly to the family heirlooms, those can be hard to let go of because something that someone saved for you to give to you feels almost wrong to then let go of or not care about when they took care of this for so long. But I think that the emotion that went into it for them as a parent holding on to those things for us is different than what we should feel for them. They wanted to give us the choice to make. They didn't want us to have that choice taken from us by them getting rid of something. So by them giving it to us, they've given us the choice of, do I want to keep this and bring this with me into my future, or am I okay getting rid of this? And so the gift that they've truly given us is the choice. And so if there's things in there that you don't really care about, take advantage of that choice and that opportunity that you've been given, and you can let those things go. Other things perhaps you've held on to from your childhood. Maybe you didn't have a great childhood. Maybe you had the most amazing childhood ever. Maybe you were adopted or were in foster care, or any number of situations that have a lot of emotion wrapped up in them. And your possessions have become a symbol of the stability that you always craved and that you never had. And holding on to those possessions helps you to feel like you have that stability. Whatever the emotion is that is tied up with those childhood items, it is deeply rooted. I know for me personally, I held on to things that had no worth and didn't really have good memories attached to them either, but they symbolized what I as a child had wanted my life to be like. So some of those things were items that I wished as a child that my childhood was like, or even items that I was aspiring to be like as an adult. And perhaps my dreams and aspirations have changed. I today as an adult am not the same person that I was as a child, nor am I the person that I thought I would become, which isn't a bad thing. I am very happy with where I am and who I am. And I am so glad that I didn't turn out to be the person that I perhaps thought I would at different stages of my childhood. But I don't need to keep those items anymore. I can let go of those things and acknowledge them for what they were to the child that I was, and accept that I am the person now that I am now. And the future that I want to have is not tied up in my past. And I can also recognize that my dreams for the future may change even further. And I can keep that in mind in what I'm holding on to now with my current aspirational items. So this category of aspirational items can include any number of things. They're items that show who we wish we were, who we want to be, who we aspire to be. It's different for everyone. So perhaps you've always wanted to play the guitar and you have been holding on to this guitar, but you haven't really ever taken the time to actually learn, and you don't really see yourself putting the time in or making the time for it. You just wish you were the kind of person who played guitar and had guitars. This is just an example. This concept shows up in so many areas in our lives, whether it's fitness. I wish I was the kind of person who ran marathons, or whether it's books that we want to someday read but don't really want to put the effort into, or maybe want to be the kind of person who hosts Thanksgiving dinner every year and cooks this amazing meal for everyone, and you just don't enjoy cooking. We all do this in different areas of our lives, so you need to look at your own life and see where perhaps this could apply to you. Sometimes those aspirational things are things that we need to begin to actually make an effort towards. It's an important enough aspiration for us that we need to make the time and space for it. So whether that is scheduling those guitar lessons or starting training for a 5K, whatever it may be, if it's an important enough goal, you need to make the time and the effort and the space to make that happen. But other things, perhaps you might wish that someday you would be like this, but it's not worth the time and the effort in the here and now. If that's the case, it can take some emotional and mental work to come around to the idea that, you know what, that's not who I am. That sounds like a really cool person to me, but that's not who I am today, and it's not who I'm going to make the time to become. When we can be that honest and real with ourselves, I think that that's where we can make really huge growth in becoming who we truly are and accepting and loving ourselves and making space in our lives to be genuine versions of ourselves and let go of all of that mental guilt and clutter and regret. Those are the areas that I have identified for me personally, and I know that other people have said as well, are extremely difficult to declutter and to minimize, as they're all those sentimental categories of items that our brains attach to and that get tied up with so many memories and emotion and feelings. Even though it's just a physical object, it feels like so much more to us. I hope that this was helpful for you in identifying some of those areas that maybe you struggle with, and in helping you to begin to consider how you might be able to move on from those negative feelings such as guilt and shame and regret, and live the life and have the future that you want to have for yourself. Please like this video down below and leave a comment and tell me what area is the hardest for you to minimize. Whether it's one of the categories that I've mentioned in this video or if it's something else entirely. I would love to know what those areas are for you. For more decluttering tips and minimalism content, be sure to subscribe to my channel by hitting the red button down below. And you can also find me on Facebook and on Instagram at Minimal Mindful Mama. I love making new friends, so I'd be so happy to see you over there as well. Happy minimizing, and I'll see you in the next video.